was brought up in the church, just to set the scene here a little.
Mm-hmm.
I was brought up in the church. My grandfather was a minister. We were there every Sunday. My mom taught children's church. My grandma was the organist. I mean, we were like at the core of this little 50, 60 member church in the country.
Nice. Okay.
But when I got into high school, middle school and high school, like it happens to a lot of us, I just felt like that was a nice tradition, but I didn't have to necessarily take it very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward to now being at a church after God began to work in my heart and turn things around for me. I'm at this college now trying to finish a bachelor's degree and take some worship classes, be more equipped for this role that I'm in. But still feeling like it just wasn't real. Feeling like maybe I was still operating on like a hand-me-down faith.
Okay, so I'm going to pause you right there. Okay, so a couple things. So you already, at this point, you knew that you loved music.
Loved music, yeah.
So you loved music
my whole life, yeah.
Okay, so you knew that was at least something you wanted to do. And
Yes.
your middle school, high school years, did you walk away from the church, or were you just kind of there, but your heart wasn't really there?
Walked away for a season.
Okay.
But would still participate to make my grandparents happy.
Okay.
I was very much like someone that my parents, like other parents, would want their kids to be around.
Mm-hmm.
Even in my years of wandering, even in my messed up times,
you were still a good kid.
I was good by the world standards. I had a Christian worldview.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that makes sense. I would even argue with my non-believing friends of my Christian worldview. But the way that it played out in the inner workings of my life behind closed doors, it was completely inconsistent with the worldview that I had.
Okay.
And with the connection from head to heart just was not there.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and because of that, I think it made it so easy to separate myself mentally from the Christian faith from time to time when it was convenient.
Yeah.
And,
did you want it to be there? Did you want there to be this connection and like, man, I don't know what it is, but I just can't seem to get there? Or was it kind of rebellion? Like, this is just, I'm going to do it to make my grandparents happy, but this is just not for me.
Honestly, I think I wanted it to not be there.
Ah, okay.
And
That's
it
even
still
more
was.
interesting. Yeah.
Like, I think I wanted to not believe it. And because I think I just wanted the freedom from conviction to live how I wanted to live.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like this ever-going thing that was there that I couldn't shake.
Yeah.
Looking back, it was the pursuit of God in my life in those years that I was trying to quiet. I was trying to ignore.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to explain away. I was really desperate, I think, for affirmation in some of the things that I wanted to do. And because I knew enough to be dangerous with Christianity and with the word, I knew enough to know that the way that I wanted to live my life was inconsistent with what the Bible said.
Yeah.
And so something had to change. It either had to be my way of living or the hold that this had on my life. And so I tried desperately to shake that hold. And I think I even convinced myself at certain points in time that, where I operated was, I think God's real. I think Jesus, did what he said he did. I just don't know that has a real cause and effect on my life. And we'll agree to disagree on other things,
Sure.
and so that led me to an indifference.
Okay.
I don't think that I was ever, in a place where I was an atheist, but I think that I was definitely like, this just doesn't have weight on my life.
Sure.
Or at least I don't want it to.
Okay. So then now you're in college.
I'm in college
number 3.
Yes, college number 3, and I'm serving at a church. So
whoa.
I began. Yes. So when I began to write music, it was very just more self-serving. I was writing love songs. I was hoping girls would like me. I was, whatever. I was all this stuff with music, and Um, but there was still this gnawing, like biblical worldview that I couldn't
Okay.
shake,
So
and so that
would
was
it come out
it
in
would
your
come out in
music?
my music. It would come out in my music, yeah. And because of that, and because of who my grandparents were in our town, and because of other things, like I would get asked sometimes to sing for youth group things or whatever. Because again, people thought I was a good guy.
Hmm.
I was in the choir in school that sang at the churches. I was uh, I wasn't like posting. We didn't have like Twitter at the time, so I wasn't like I was posting like I hate God or I'm
Sure.
not a Christian. It was just things I was struggling with internally. So externally, I was still invited to do this, that, and the other in the
Hmm.
Christian space in my community, and I remember going to a Bible study with some friends. I was starting to go into a Bible study, and this was about a 2-year process. This Bible study, but early on in the study, I was like, okay, I'm gonna like give this a try, like being faithful, because
Okay.
again, like I think I was on the Christian spectrum, so to speak, in my mind, and I was like, I've been over here in the, I don't really buy into the repercussions that it has on my life, but
Hmm.
maybe I should go here to where I give it a try,
Yeah.
and I can be involved in the music and it's another outlet for my creativity or whatever. It was still very self-serving
Hmm.
at that time. What can it do for me without me doing anything for it?
Sure.
And that led to an opportunity to serve at a church in music, which really, hindsight, I had no business getting that job at that time.
Hmm.
I was very ill-equipped. I was just musically talented, and that got me in. But the way that God sovereignly worked in that is unbelievable, because being at that church, seeing real Christianity played out in these guys that I was sitting in meetings with, seeing a genuine faith, and then contrasting that to my own faith or experience, and realizing I'm faking it. Like I am. This is not real for me.
Yeah.
If I believe it, I don't believe it as much as they do, because it has no effect on my life. And so the conviction began to set in
Yeah.
slowly. And fast forward, then I find myself going back to finish a degree, taking some worship classes to better do my job. And all the while, God is using those moments and those appointments to not really prepare me for my job, but prepare my heart for actual ministry,
Mm.
and prepare my heart to experience Him and experience His grace, to let it go from here into here. And so I'm at this Bible study that I've been going to, just going through the motions at it again, just really indifferent. Like it's great, it's fine. This is just whatever. And one night in particular, a guy was talking, and I honestly don't remember what he talked about. I mean, it had to be the gospel, it had to be something great, but I don't remember. I just remember slowly zoning out of the moment and like introspectively realize, like seeing my filth,
Mm.
like really clearly. Um, like God had taken the scales off my eyes, like the
Wow.
eyes of my heart. Like I'm sitting there, and just years of going through the motions, years of faking Christianity, years of giving lip service to Him when it's convenient, but not having a real heart connection and a real desire to please and live for Him and glorify Him. All of that was coming into my mind, flooding me in past relationships I've been in past situations I found myself in poor decisions I made, just all these things. Like the scales were off, and I'm seeing it, and I'm just seeing the filth. And I felt like I was like in the presence of God in that moment, in that little chapel at that school. And I
Wow.
was like naked, like before the Lord,
Yeah.
and just like filthy. And I remember leaving that session, not talking to anybody, just going and sitting in my car in the parking lot, and in my little Ford Taurus. And I'm sitting there, and it's late. I mean, this was like a college Bible study, so it started like 8:30. So this is like probably 10 o'clock at night. I'm sitting there in my car, just broken and crying and praying, and like, God, I get it. Like, I want it to be real. I'm done with the faking it. I'm done with the pretending. I'm done shrugging off any conviction that I've felt in the past. I'm
Yeah.
done, you know, putting the mask on when I go to my church, when I do this, whatever. This is the moment where I'm just as miserable as everybody else, but I call myself a Christian. I've got it. This has to be the moment. And I just desperately was praying. And this is the part where it sounds a little cliche, but it's true. I was getting ready to go home because you just pour yourself out, and I'm like, you know, uh, it's in your court now, kind of thing. Uh, I want to feel you, whatever that is. And I turn on the radio, and I'm getting ready to drive home, and East to West by Casting Crowns comes on the radio, and it's that part, like, uh, you've cast my sin as far as the east is from the west, but right now I feel like, I'm one mistake away from you leaving me this way. Can you show me how far the east is from the west? And I just remember, and that wasn't a new song at the moment. Like, that was just, whatever
What was playing
song.
on the radio?
It was playing on the radio, whatever it was. And that, like, I put my car back in park. And
We got some more work to do.
yeah, I was like, God, this is like, you know, 'cause, I mean, I wasn't raised in like a charismatic church, so this, like, the hearing from the Lord and all that stuff, like, wasn't common to me. So I was just naive. I was like, God, is this you talking to, like, are you trying to tell me something here? Like, I just let the truth of that soak into me. And I get, my Bible is sitting in the car next to me, and I frantically search that passage where that's talked about. And I'm like, this is what you are telling me, that it's possible for me to let go of this. It's possible for me, for all my filth, for all the things that I believe you just showed me in there. You showed me this because you want me to give it to you, and you want me to let go of it, and you can take it away from me forever. And so I just had this new sense of, okay, it's real. And so then over the course of the next several years, and even now, now the real heart work began.
Yeah.
That was in 2012, 2013, I guess. But that was the moment when it was like, I am going to follow Jesus.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was a moment. I've written a couple different songs about it, about that experience, because it really was the moment that I can look back and go, I don't know if that's the moment when I became saved, because I think that God was saving me before that. But that was the moment when it became the reality of salvation sunk into me, that the reality of what it meant, the reality of what grace meant, and just the deep love that God has for us, that, as far as I'd ran, and as messy as my life was, and as just as fake as I'd been, that God was still like, no, you're one of mine, and we're just going to wash you off, and we're going to get you right.
Wow.
And it was a beautiful experience. It was ugly, snotty, tear crying at the time, but looking back, it was a beautiful experience.
Yeah. So how did ministry then change? Because you'd already kind of been in that space. You were already doing music. How did then that shift where all of a sudden you're not faking it anymore? You're not just a guy who can do music.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, in that it became like just this joy-filled thing that I got to do, and I was on fire. I mean, I was just like, I was consuming every like sermon I could find throughout my day. I was reading all the time. I was just like writing so much music, and I was just so grateful that I got to be at this church. And I remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe that they let me work here before, like, or whatever, And so I had a lot of great conversations with our senior minister, and I was like, and soon after that, within about a year and a half later, I began the ordination process at my church, where I went through like several lessons, meetings, studying lots of things to be like an ordained minister in my church's system. And
Yeah.
so it's really like, it's kind of like it was like the baptism moment, like with Jesus when his ministry began, so to speak. Like
Uh-huh.
I look back at that moment and I'm like, that's when my ministry like began. I
Yeah.
was trying to figure it out before that. And it's like God just was like, I have called you to this. Here's the confirmation. You're going to get your heart right. And then the music that you're putting out is going to really mean something to you now. And it's going to mean something to other people. And I mean, it's just been a, a growing process really ever since then.
Yeah. I love stories like this. There's so much of your story I can relate to because I have a lot of similarities of, growing up in the church and trying to like still sort of do my own thing, but not really like deliberately walking away, but just kind of like walking on what I thought was a parallel path, and it like sort of kept me close enough,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, and the thing that's interesting is those testimonies sometimes feel complicated, to try to like capture all
Yeah.
of that, because
Yeah.
it's almost like we kind of want the neat before and after.
Yeah.
That's
It's more
like,
marketable. Yeah. It's definitely more marketable. It's, it's like, I was lost and now I'm found. It's like, well, I was kind of found, but acted lost and like, I don't know. And I really chalk it up to like just the common grace of growing up in a Christian family
Mhm.
and having Christian grandparents and Christian parents and that Christian community around me. I feel like God just never fully took the guardrails off of my life.
Yeah,
It's like
I hear that. Yeah,
he was preserving me. He was protecting me from myself. He was protecting me from, other things. And just looking back, it's like he just had his hands over all of it. Even when I was just pushing, shoving trying to get out of his grip, he just had held me there. And it's just, he's a good God.
yeah, yeah. So, who would you say your music is for? Do you write music for people like you, for the person who's grown up in church and maybe needs to hear it a new way, or do you write music for the person who's unfamiliar with church, or both?
I mean, I try to do both. I think naturally, when I'm writing honestly and when I'm writing from my perspective, I think it's probably going to connect more with the prodigal. It's going to connect more with the person who was brought up in the church and disenfranchised for whatever reason, and it's just trying to figure out where they're at. I think that that's probably more of the natural connection, but I do try to word things in a way. I mean, I've got several friends in my life that it just wasn't a part of their life, and so their view of Christianity is very postmodern, very
Yeah,
like it's a thing of the past that's not relevant, and it's kind of a cute thing that you do, but it doesn't apply to me. And no connection, no Judeo-Christian, whatever, other than just what is passed on from American culture, whatever. And
hmm,
so I am thinking of them in the songwriting room at times, and I'm thinking, how can I phrase this in a way that isn't just blatantly Christianese, to where it might affect them where they're at, and just with the human experience that they have from experiencing the broken world.
yeah,
And so I think it comes in. I think definitely the sonics of our music might uh, reach across the aisle, so to speak, or reach out of the church walls more to people. Just my musical influences as it bleeds into my music and bubbles up, and the Eagles and the Springsteen and the Bob Seger and all of that. I think that might extend a hand out to people outside the church walls. So hopefully it's a blend.
yeah. What are you most excited about for your sophomore album?
I think just the step forward sonically. I think we've allowed some of those influences to come in more and not been afraid of them and just let them kind of do what they are. It's a part of who I am and what I do musically, and just letting some of that out of the box a little, I think.
Yeah. What's the name of the album?
Running home.
Feels appropriate, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being with me on the podcast today. It was a joy to really hear your story.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's a cool format.
Snapshot Testimony is a Moody Radio podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review or comment on whatever platform you're using. Your feedback really helps us reach more listeners. Plus, I just like hearing from you. I'm your host, Allie Domerson, and together we're sharing the moments that shape a life of faith in Christ. Thanks for listening.